two brothers. They've kind of seen it all, whether you're into the Dallas, New York, or LA food scene. They've been there, done it, and now they're building their own business together and learned a lot of lessons and a lot of fun stories you're going to enjoy today. Welcome to Decision Points. I'm Doug Hudson.
I'm Scott Wood.
Thrilled to have brothers Greg and Nik Katz. Greg, founder of Katz Brothers, and Nik jumped in as soon as you could.
That's right.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, glad you guys are here.
Thank you for having us.
What are Katz Brothers? What do y'all do?
Well, we run restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty simple thing, right?
Probably started a few restaurants too, don't
That's
you?
right, just a few.
Restaurant and hospitality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long y'all been doing that?
Our whole lives, basically.
Yeah.
I think we both started when we were about 15, 16.
Yeah. I think, I've been in it 25 years at this point. But even after we got in the restaurant business, I think reflecting back to even when we were way younger, I guess there were signs that we didn't see that this was the future.
This is in your future.
Yeah. One interesting thing, random, that I've thought about in the past, my culinary, or my part, I guess I'm culinary driven.
Yeah.
I was back of the house, cook, all that, the first part of my career. But going back, we grew up in Cape Town, South Africa. We had a giant plum tree at the back of our house. Nik and I used to climb up in this plum tree. I think we were he must have been 4. And we would pick plums, shine them, and then sell them to our grandparents. So I guess I've looked back on, I've thought about that story many times.
So you all were very entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But you were smart because I think your grandparents were low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. We marked it up on them too.
Yeah.
So give us the current lineup of your restaurants, just so we know from the start kind of where you guys are and what you're doing.
Yeah, we so about 7 years ago, I kind of sort of hit where I felt like I needed this was always a dream.
Yep.
And about 7 years ago, I kind of I couldn't hold back anymore and just felt like I had to do it. Literally felt like I had to do it. I couldn't sleep anymore. I was so scared, but just I had to do it.
Yep.
So we opened Beverly's, a neighborhood bistro. That opened 6 years ago.
Gosh.
Across the street.
Time flies.
And people thought we were absolutely crazy, just opening on Fitzhugh Avenue.
Yeah.
I mean,
you were savants.
Yeah.
The whole world is coming to you.
I had looked at, I can't tell you how many spaces of just, real estate guys. Hey, come look at this, come look at that, come look at this. And I walked into this place and go, this is it.
Yep.
And the guys were looking at me like, are you crazy?
Yeah. He said yes. Give it to him.
Yeah. Good. Where does he sign?
Sign it now.
Yeah. And that was awesome. And then we had the opportunity to take over that building across the street where we have Clifton Club.
Yeah.
So Clifton Club opened 2 years ago, neighborhood cocktail lounge. Then we had the opportunity to open Greenpoint Seafood and Oyster Bar on Knox.
You're crushing it. I was a little late to the game. I know you hadn't been over that long. I've been 3 times in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So
love
the vibe in there.
We
the
love
food's ridiculous.
We love the location. We love the neighborhood. Just everything. The fact that we can bounce between Clifton, Greenpoint, and Bev's.
Got a tight circle
every single day, and just what's happening on Knox. And we just want to be sort of the casual neighborhood seafood joint. That's open 7 days a week, lunch and dinner. It doesn't close. Big bar. Come anytime you want.
Yeah.
And
Royce introduced me to it, Medlin.
Okay.
So it's awesome. It's
great. And then we're in the final stages of construction. Going to open Claremont, a neighborhood grill, over at Northwest Highway and Midway, Preston Hollow-ish. We're super excited about again, just another opportunity to open something that we feel is great and going to really enhance another neighborhood.
Awesome.
So that's kind of where we're at. We're looking at a bunch of other things. Just want to be careful and take our time doing it.
We'll get into that. So you're from South Africa?
Yeah.
Yeah,
To what age? Yeah, walk us through your all's background.
Yeah, I'm a couple years younger than Greg, but I was born in Cape Town. Greg was born in Durban. Durban's kind of like almost like a surf city, I guess. It's got a huge Indian influence. Cape Town was, if you've ever seen it, it's always top 5 most beautiful places in the world to go. A lot like San Diego in the sense where there's the ocean and the mountains right next to it. Very similar climate. Obviously, because it's on the coast, seafood is just, you're eating food that was caught
that day or day
38 minutes prior to that. And, it was just a great upbringing. It was a different time, obviously. This is like the early mid 80s. It was a great family time. We had tons of cousins growing up. I don't know how many photos of us all on like bikes riding, little parks and stuff. It was just a great little upbringing to really focus around family. Eating was a big part of it. We always used to have these, similar to what a barbecue is here. It was called a braai. It's just kind of like this. The entire family comes over, we cook lamb and sausage and just burgers and just everything.
Or a fish braai.
Yeah. Whole fish was definitely part of the equation.
What are we cooking on?
Yeah.
What apparatus?
Grill,
what tool?
Just a
grill.
grill.
Yeah, but no, during this time, it was never gas or propane ever.
Yeah.
It was
Charcoal.
It was always charcoal. It was like a ceremonious time. Like I remember like our dad and our uncles were like, making the fire, and it's like,
of course they were.
That was the first part, getting some beers and like, everyone's experts on making their
It's like
their
carving
fire.
the turkey. It's learning to start the.
Yeah.
That's why I couldn't own a green egg. I had green egg and I had to just get rid of it because I couldn't make the dang fire.
Yeah, so these things could last, all day or all night.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, what were your mom and dad's business and what?
So my dad's always been in finance. He's been CFO. He just recently retired. Always, numbers, logical, mathematical, and on some levels, I think applied that to cooking. But he was always the grill master on anything outdoors. My dad was the master of cooking.
See, I bet you he was a triangle guy with the charcoal. Do you think he was a triangle
Definitely.
guy? He definitely counted every single one of them, map to map.
Yeah.
And my mom had a couple jobs when she was younger, like, bookkeeping, things like that. But for the most part, she was a stay-at-home mom, took care of us all through our entire upbringing, really. She was definitely, they were both very social entertainers. My mom definitely had a flair for like the entertainment side of things, whether it was, table decor, always these beautiful flowers and, vases with glass balls in them, just really great with tasteful, elegant, beautiful decor that were like really
tablescape.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She was always an artist. She's painted basically her whole life. We all have like pieces of her art like in our houses.
So cool.
Yeah, just that's just kind of like what she brought to us. Me and Greg like kind of joke because I'm very much my dad's like my whole family jokes that I'm a carbon copy, South African accent, carbon copy. And Greg's definitely from my mom's side. Just in both in looks and in like the way we are in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So,
Do you guys have other brothers and sisters, or just the two of you?
we got a younger sister.
Okay.
She's also in finance, so like, not so surprising, I guess.
Is she here or is she in South Africa?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's here?
Yeah.
Your parents are still in South Africa?
No. We all immigrated in '86 to Dallas. My dad had a brother that originally immigrated. He's a doctor to the Cleveland area, but moved to Houston pretty soon after. And so that was kind of like our close connection. Doctor, Houston made sense. Finance, Dallas made sense.
Yeah.
And we've lived here ever since. My dad, for work, actually moved to Atlanta in the late 90s, 99, I think. And he was there up until about two and a half years ago, where they just moved back. My sister and her husband and now 3 kids were in New Orleans and just moved back about a year and a half ago too.
Great.
So this is actually the first time that all of us have been in the same city
You guys are
since
blessed.
'99. So
Very cool.
yeah, it's a great situation. We've always been a very tight family. I moved around a little bit after college, and like Greg, I and Samantha's our sister.
Yeah.
Kind of like, hey, look, let's just all go back, and we kind of all did. Like that family was more important than our kind of direction in a lot of times.
That's great.
That's a pretty big statement you just said. And I hope people that family for you all was more important than direction. And that's it's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
Because most of us, we want to make it, I'm not going to say one's right or wrong, right? But for you all, family was going to drive a lot of decision making for y'all.
Yeah. And I mean, we also, feel obviously a very, very deep connection to Cape Town.
Yep.
But also to Dallas.
Yep.
So
do you guys get back to Cape Town from time to time?
Yeah. We've been a lot. And over the years, I mean, there were periods of times like when I first started this business where I didn't get to go back for a couple of years, but I think I've been back the last 3 years. When I was younger, we went like sort of 5 years in a row, like kind of the end of high school for us.
Yeah.
So we really reconnected with a lot of our sort of younger friends that were there. So really special time. And Cape Town and South Africa is absolutely a part of who we are.
Yep.
And there's a lot of not young, but there are a lot of South African, Cape Townian families that are actually here in Dallas, like literally like our grandparents grew up together.
Yeah.
So big community here as well.
So where'd y'all go to high school?
Plano.
Plano.
Right.
West Side.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Love it.
That when I was there,
Both of us.
Plano stopped before Legacy Road. There
Yeah.
wasn't anything north.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sorry, Spring Creek.
Yeah.
So it was Park, Spring Creek, and then just land.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
There was nothing over
Ranch
there.
land. Yeah.
So to think about what has happened in North Plano, Frisco, all that is, we used to have, keg parties and fields there. Yeah, so.
Well, that's, we had a guest, we were talking about it, Robbie Vaughn on, North Dallas, 6:30, that's where they hunt dove. And so it's just funny how it all just
Insane.
keeps. So you mentioned when we first started kind of first jobs. Let's go to first jobs for a second. Each of y'all's first job?
My first paying job was like soccer linesman referee when I was 12. Did that until I was, it was called a courtesy clerk. It's actually a bag boy at Kroger. I did that for about a year until I started being a server in a restaurant, a little small Italian thing right at Campbell and Preston. Again, South African connection, like kind of a family friend. And I'm like this, dumb 10th grade kid. And I'm like, hey, can I work here? They're like, sure, come on in.
What was the name of that restaurant?
Spazzo's.
Okay,
Spazzo's Pizza. Did deliveries. I actually happened to work with a bunch of his friends that were a little older than me that literally taught me kind of the basics of everything that I developed from being a server and bartender, funnily enough. I'm pretty close with one of them still, Josh Hazard.
Yeah.
I grew up at basically Preston and Campbell.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Campbell and Davenport.
Yeah, that's where we were. We were like
lived over there,
Davenport and
Did you go to Pierce?
I did.
Yeah.
Park Hill and then
Oh, man.
and then Pierce.
I went to Park Hill for a week when we moved from South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then y'all moved obviously out of there? Or?
We ended up going to a private school for a couple years and then went to Plano.
Yeah. Did you ever go to Spazzo's?
I don't think Spazzo's was
wasn't there for a
I'll
long
tell you.
time.
I'll tell you exactly where it is. Remember the M&M grocery store right there?
Yeah.
Or Mama's Pizza?
Rode my bike there many times.
I used to steal cigarettes from there.
Yeah. I didn't do
Maybe
that.
don't include that. But it was right
I think you're
there.
past the statute of limitations. Marbles, I'm
M&M,
sure.
I haven't heard that.
Anything I could get my hands on.
Whatever's closest to the register.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Mama's Pizza. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What was your first job?
So my first real job was from my Italian cousin, David Campisi.
Come on.
Delivering pizza pies. So David graduated
From the Mockingbird location?
No, David graduated from Texas Tech and opened up a tiny little Campisi's Pizza to Go in North Dallas. It must, I don't know how big it was, 500 feet square. You couldn't eat in there.
Yeah.
And basically, like every high school kid worked for him. So that's when I first met David. He literally just graduated college. And then a guy named Champ Kirk was his partner, fraternity brother, and Kenny Penn, his cousin. And to this day, I am super, super close with David, Kenny, and Champ still. But that was my first real job, was delivering pizzas for David. Yeah.
What car did you have?
I had an Acura Integra.
Come on.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It was sweet. It was
Big speakers in the back.
yeah,
It was
big
amazing.
speakers. You know, it was all like black with tinted windows.
Of course it was.
I thought it was so cool. We had the neat,
except for the Campese's light up.
I thought it was so cool. No, that made me cool. Are you kidding? Yeah.
Smoking the entire time.
The whole time. It was awesome. Yeah. And there wasn't, internet really, right?
Yeah.
So we would literally have Mapscos in our car, and we would have to go
The Mapsco days.
And then like if we couldn't find the place, we had to pull over, use a payphone to either call the restaurant, get better directions, or call the guest, be like, "Hey, I'm in this apartment complex, whatever." Yeah.
I love the hospitality language there.
Yeah.
Guest.
Yeah.
That's
right.
I'm not sure most delivery people are calling the person the guest.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so you guys decide to go to college.
I did.
You did?
Kind of.
Neither of us graduated.
Kind of. That's
Walk
good.
us through why you went, why you didn't go. What do you learn from going or not going?
He's got a better, longer story. But so I went in, in high school, very good student, great grades, did great on the ACTs.
Just like Greg, right?
Right. I've always, again, going back to my dad, like the school stuff, like has always been pretty easy for me. Kind of to a detriment. When I got to college, I had not learned any actual like studying skills. And quite frankly, I was too immature. Like I definitely shouldn't have gone to college. I should have taken a year off in hindsight, obviously. I basically just messed around the entire time. I was chasing girls,
Partying.
And
where was this happening? At UT?
Yeah. And
which
Austin.
one? I couldn't see the hand. What?
Right. No, listen, I met some of like my best friends there.
It's awesome.
A lot of them through high school. Great experience. That city being alone for the first time. Trying to figure out who I am as a young man was a good experience, but wasteful when it comes to the financial side of things.
Yeah.
I did learn a few things here and there for sure, but while I was there, always like serving and bartending on the side. So kind of like not knowing it at the time, but like kind of furthering my craft on some levels. Like I said, what can I say? I had a great time.
What year?
This was I was a freshman in '98,
Okay.
and I should have graduated in 2002. I actually stayed an extra half the semester and ended up leaving in December of 2002, I guess. 1.5 semester, 4.5 years.
What bars or restaurants are you serving in?
Oof, God, there was Shakespeare's was a bar that I used to love working in. But for the most part, I found a job actually as a server at a big corporate company from Darden called Bahama Breeze. It's like their Caribbean concept kind of thing. And again, in hindsight, not knowing this at the time, that really corporate training was actually really helpful for me because I'd always been, going back to that Spazzo's place or any other places I worked was very, call it mom and pop.
Mom and pop
like not really structured, not really organized, not great training. And that Darden kind of like opened my eyes to learning. And that's where I actually first learned how to bartend. And that really corporate, month-long, ridiculous training. I don't know if you ever remember Bahama Breeze. It had a booklet with like 250 drinks or something. Yeah. Some with ice cream and blenders and, tiki things. It was a lot, but having to learn and master that was actually really beneficial for me in all sorts of ways, besides bartending, but understanding training and the importance of it later was really something that like left a lasting impression.
Did Darden teach you? Hang on, this is really important. Did Darden teach you how to do all the cocktail tricks like the movie Cocktail?
I got a good story for this one. So I was in there during college. As I mentioned, I left college and moved to Atlanta where my parents were living at the time. And I just transferred jobs. So because there was one out there. And at that place, at that time, they had to do lots of like bar flares, what they call. Like we literally had to light bottles on fire, flip them, throw them to each other, put like coasters on beers, throw them like 20 yards to the other bartender. It was like part of the show basically. But what happened was there was a guy that we later nicknamed Fire Marshal Bill because he would put 151 or a high proof alcohol and he would blow fire. Well, one time he was doing it while I was working, he did it and like, I don't know, hiccuped or coughed or something. And he did it wrong and like lit a person on fire. I mean, not like their hair. I mean, it wasn't like totally engulfed, but literally caught them on fire. We all threw pitchers of water on them. And after that, Darden completely stopped doing all flair.
All the fun was taken out of it.
But I was literally there when that happened. It was
that's amazing.
Pretty interesting.
So
I wasn't like Cocktail and Dreams level, but not bad.
That's fun. So when you were in school in Austin, doing your bartending thing, waiting tables, were you thinking about the hospitality business at that point? No,
not at all.
Did you have other aspirations, like I'm going into finance, or
No, I
you're-
actually, again, going back to, I was pretty good at numbers just in general. But I just, again, I was immature. Like I had no idea what I was doing. And, when I was in high school at that time, like business school was like the thing to do,
Right.
And so I didn't get into the business school originally. But they had like this alternate kind of, I can't remember what they called it, but you could take like 6 business courses and get like, it wasn't an associate's, but it was some other degree. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of pursuing that, but like, again, I didn't really care about classes. So I was like, look, I'm going to serve and bartend. Figured out when I moved to Atlanta, I actually tried to become like a certified stockbroker with a Series 7, Series 63, I think it was called. And I actually passed those, but I, again, didn't care. I worked in an office with I was 22 at the time, 23. Yeah. The youngest person besides me was like 40. Like, are you going to trust me that like some idiot that's 22 about your wealth? I mean, come on. So, so I just kind of decided to stop pursuing that completely. And I ended up moving from that Bahama Breeze to a huge nightclub in Atlanta. It was I think it was the biggest club in Georgia at the time. I mean, it was ridiculous. I was working maybe 2 nights a week. Sometimes if there was a record label that dropped, that person would have a private event on a Tuesday. I met Britney Spears, Snoop Dogg, a couple of cool famous people that were kind of fun. But I made I don't even know. It was
crazy
thousands
money.
of dollars, and I was some young idiot. But the problem was the other 4 or 5 days I wasn't working,
you were spending
smoking weed. I was in strip club, just basically being a degenerate.
Maybe don't include that one.
Right, sorry. But listen,
No, he's leaving it all on the field.
Yeah, right,
and we can decide whether we
exactly.
get it or not.
But I'll tell you, that actually was really impactful because I did have a life epiphany that was like, look, this is incredible fun. I'm not gonna, I'm never gonna forget this time in my life, but this isn't sustainable either.
Right.
And so that's when I kind of mentioned that me, Greg, and Samantha kind of all moved back to Dallas. It happened soon after that where I was like, I just can't do this anymore.
Yep.
And just basically called him. He had connections with the restaurant in Dallas, and I went and started bartending there. And then I got into management, and kind of the rest was history.
Cuba Libre, Tristan and Nick.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So take us through your kind of that period and when does hospitality start to really connect for you?
So
And you didn't go to school after.
So I did also. So here we go. I'll try to
Go.
I'll try to keep it
It's a
small.
good one.
I'll keep it short for you. So a really good high school friend of mine, dad, retired while we were in high school. He drove around all of South Florida looking for a city that didn't have a Tex-Mex restaurant. He came upon.
If you tell me this is Uncle Julio's,
No, that would be a great story. Though.
okay, yours is going to be better because Uncle
Yeah.
Julio's was not very good.
No. So he came onto this tiny little town called Sarasota. I don't know if you guys have been to Sarasota.
It's
lately.
where my dad is from.
Okay, so he found Sarasota, driving through all of it, and decided he was going to open a Tex-Mex restaurant there. So he opened on Main Street, right above the little harbor right there, Two Senoritas, which was a really famous restaurant for years there. So anyway, I grew up with this guy's son. The son says to me, "Hey, after we graduate, you want to move to Florida, go live on my dad's yacht and work in his restaurant."
Yes.
Let's go. Let's fucking go. So we graduated a week later. I don't know how my parents let us do this, but anyway, a week later, we jumped in his truck and we drove from Dallas to Sarasota, Florida. We lived on his dad's boat.
Was it a yacht?
It was nice, but it wasn't that nice.
Yeah.
But we were also how old were we?
You were 18.
Yeah. And I was like, are we 21? No, we weren't even.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were 18 years old. I mean, we were living we did everything that you would imagine doing living on a yacht. So anyway, I go there. I have zero experience really. So I became a food runner and a busboy in Two Senoritas. This was the hottest restaurant. I mean, it was electric fire.
Unbelievable.
And everyone who was everyone in Sarasota, retiree, whatever, all was there. So it was like my first, I was like, what is this rock star lifestyle?
Yeah.
So anyway, I was a food runner carrying big trays of trios and fajitas and all that. And then
Margaritas.
eventually I wasn't allowed to touch any alcohol yet.
Oh, okay.
So eventually they started training me to be a server. And I actually remember the first day I ever made $100, and it was called ringing the bell. So I remember the first day I rung the bell.
In the back of house, there's a bell.
Well, I had just gone out of waiter training.
Yeah.
And I made $100.
It's incredible.
I mean, I thought I was a millionaire.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So so the end of the summer comes, and my friends here in Dallas are all going to UT and this and that. I'm like, well, shit, I guess I got to go to college. So anyway,
And they're all thinking,
yeah.
well, shit, I should probably go
move to
to
Sarasota.
what Greg's doing.
So I came back. I went to Austin Community College for a year. So this was 98, I guess. School wasn't for me. If you guys, did you go to UT or not?
I went to Baylor.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna say I worked for a little period at the Texadelphia on the drag, whatever. But that school wasn't for me.
Yep.
So what would have been my sophomore year were Jewish as well, South African Jews. So my parents were like, hey, if you're not going to go to school, you're going to work or you're going to do something, right?
Yep.
So I came home, waited tables, whatever, and then I went and lived in Israel for a year on what's called a kibbutz. It's like a little community, and everyone has their own little job and stuff like that. My dad also, like when he was 18, I think, in 68, went to Israel, lived on a kibbutz, and helped like the community or whatever. Long story short,
Did you feel pressured to do that? Was that your choice?
I wanted to do it.
You wanted to?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was just kind of lost.
Yeah.
And like, I guess mature enough to know that like, I wanted to like figure out like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? All my friends are in business school, want to go to, law school, this and that. And it just
Yeah.
wasn't me,
Yeah.
And my parents weren't the kind of parents that were going to force us to do it.
Yeah.
They were just like, if you're not going to do that, you're going to work.
Correct.
So
You're
need
gonna do
fig-
something.
You're going
Right.
to figure out what you got to do.
Right.
So I went there, and I worked in basically the cafeteria, and that's where my first job actually I got there in the late summer, and my first job was picking olives and avocados in the fields.
No way.
So it was really cool. Like, I
And
was in the
kibbutz, they're
fields
kinda
with my hands.
Yeah, it's like
Self-contained
a
little
community
communities.
farm.
Yeah. So like everyone, so you might work in the school, you might be in the laundry, you
Yeah.
might be working in the factory. I was like, I'll work in the kitchen.
Yep.
So, and we were cooking for thousands of, I don't know how many people lived on the kibbutz. I mean, it was big. It was like, 10,000 people or something
Wow.
at the time. So I was cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and people like ate in their homes, but basically came to like the
Wow.
cafeteria, the community, and it was like good food,
Yeah.
So that was my first like kind of, time to work in a kitchen. And
Yep.
I was like, it was me. It was like, this dude from, Mohawk with tats from London, these people from Australia that would drink and party all night. It was a motley crew of degenerates, kind of what the restaurant business is. So anyway, that was my first. So I was like, after the time in Sarasota and now this, I mean, I was looking back, I was 1,000% addicted to the
Interesting.
restaurant, food, hospitality, business. And I started finding my path.
What hooked you? What do you think?
The energy of just like the people I was around, the energy of what we call like service or like the push, like
Yep.
it's like everyone's coming in, the adrenaline of all
Yep.
of it. I was young, that like it was like a drug. I mean,
Yeah.
we still feel like that today when it's like Saturday night and it's like, all right, it's like everyone get ready, 7:30, here we go,
Let's
boom,
go.
boom, boom.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
go.
It's
Like,
game time.
Game fights, exactly. So that was really like, and I happened to be good at it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of when I started reflecting. I was like, why am I good at that? Why am I enjoying that? And I kind of look back. So you guys will appreciate, I'll keep it short. But so I was there for almost a year. And then I was like, I need to do what everyone else is doing. So I actually went back to Austin Community College, sort of applied myself a little bit more. And, it was with the idea of transferring to UT. But this flame was already inside me. And then I decided I was going to go to culinary school. So on my birthday, I think it was my 22nd birthday, my dad used to do a lot of business at Del Frisco's up north, and took me to dinner there for my birthday. The server, his name was Alan Bush. Alan Bush was the first server that D. Lincoln ever hired when she and Dale owned Bob's, but it was Del Frisco's.
No
Right.
way.
So I'm like, so my dad, myself, I don't know if Nick was there.
Yeah, we were all there.
Yeah, we were all there. And so I'm telling this guy, hey, I'm going to go to culinary school. I want to be a chef. And he's like, man, that's a waste of time. He's like, let me call my best friend, Dean Faring. I'm going to get you a job. And Bush was like, people who hear this Bush is one of the most famous servers of all time in Dallas. I mean, he's salesman like you can't believe. You want to eat out of his hands.
Yep.
Kiss him up. You want to kiss him when you left.
Yep.
So anyway, he's like, let me call my best friend, Dean Faring. And I'm like, okay. And he walks away. I'm like, who's Dean Faring? So I got really funny stories about this whole thing. But anyway, I started working. If you want to hear a story, I'll tell you. But I started working for Dean in 1998. I made $5.25 an hour. I was a prep cook.
At the mansion?
I wasn't at the mansion. Yeah, right there. I wasn't even in the kitchen. I was in a prep kitchen, peeling potatoes, peeling carrots, making thousands of crab cakes.
Wasn't even in the kitchen. It was it was the kitchen before the kitchen.
And let me tell you, like,
which was a closet.
Yeah. And there's a couple hilarious stories about how I even got the job with Dean. But I mean, kind of back to that rock star thing. There was a long hallway in the back of the mansion. And I remember the first day walking down this thing. I mean, I had a white jacket, a white apron. They gave me a big chef hat. But you would walk into this kitchen. No, not yet.
Didn't get a name?
No. You got to earn that.
Yeah, you did.
And I walked into the kitchen, and I mean, there were probably 40 cooks, chefs. Wow. And I mean, it was
the energy.
It was that.
You were double hooked.
That's it. It was, the rest is history.
So you didn't go to culinary school?
I did not go to culinary school.
You just got to work.
Yeah. So I
got paid to go to culinary school.
Yeah. I ended up working for Dean at the mansion for over 5 years. I worked every station in the kitchen. When I left there, I was senior sous chef. I had worked every position in the morning, every position at night. I had learned it was incredible.
So,
and that was 98 to early mid, 2000. So the mansion was like Monday night, Tuesday night, 300
heyday.
covers.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't tell the difference between Monday or Saturday night. It was like, okay, we got 13 tasting menus going on. The president's in another room. This is going on here. That's going on there. It was the place.
So at this point, like, you're there, you're in, you're in the restaurant business. You're like all in.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking about where you're going to go. You're obviously at the mansion. Are you getting pressure or advice from Dean or others to say, hey, if you really want to be in this business, you're going to need to go to culinary school? Is anybody telling you that?
So at that point, everyone was like, not everyone. There was most people were like, do not go to culinary school. It's a waste. Keep learning. What I would tell people now is, if this is something that interests you, I would definitely recommend culinary school, because it just gives you a nice, I worked from the ground up. I mean, it was not cool.
Yeah.
Like, I was waking up, at 5 a.m. to go to work. All my college buddies were, partying and whatever. So, but I think culinary school really gives you a great, foundation to learn all these different skills, and then you can go into the industry. But the other alternative is go work in spend a year here, spend a year here, or do what I did, go into a major operation of we were 5-star, 5 diamond, and just work in a hotel where there is a million things going on.
You're going to get the reps.
So what years were you there?
98 to 2004.
And
30,
Nick,
somewhere around there,
what years were you? You came back and you went to Cuba Libre.
I got back in 2006.
Okay.
I believe.
Okay. So
so basically, I worked at the mansion for 5.5 years. During that time, I met and worked with a ton of the most talented people that own their own restaurants, run hotels, are it now. One of those people was Nick Badavinas. Mm-hmm. So Nick and I, Nick became a mentor to me, owe a lot of my cooking and, kind of chef skills to Nick. Certain things, for Dean, I had all these different, influences and mentors in my life. Yeah. So Nick had partnered with Tristan at this point and had taken over Cuba Libre. So 5.5 years of working in the hotel. Hotels and restaurants are very, very different. They're operated differently. It's very, very different. So I was just like, okay, I got to get out of the hotel business. I got to go experience what it's like to work in an independent restaurant. So Nik hired me as a sous chef. And this day we all came from the school of Dean Faring. So Nik had to call Dean to ask permission to hire me. Like, that's
because you don't just poach a sous chef.
No. That was a serious thing.
Yeah, no, 100%.
That was a serious thing. Yeah. And even today, just side note, like when we're talking about opening a new restaurant, like Dean will come over, take a look at the space. Hey, what do you think, chef? Like when I see him, we do events. Yes, chef. No, chef. Like he's my chef.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's
so
cool.
I worked for Nik and Tristan for about 2.5 years. Cuba Libre opened the first Fireside Pies on Henderson Avenue. Nik and I and a couple other people were cooking pizzas in the back oven of Cuba Libre. It was incredible. And he's an intense mofo and super passionate. And it was awesome getting to like create all that stuff with him. And then I moved to New York.
So did you guys overlap at all?
No, so I was in Atlanta while he was in this stint. Then he went to New York. I was still in Atlanta, and then we both kind of came back within 6 months of each other or something like that. I think I was there first, and then you came out.
Yeah, I was living in New York, and then Nik decided to move back here. So I called Tristan. Hey, my brother wants to come back. He wants to be a bartender. He became a bartender at Cuba Libre.
Okay.
And then I can't remember, a year later, 8 months, whatever, I came back. I can tell you the whole New York story, but like, basically after about 3.5 years or whatever in New York, I just woke up one morning. I was like, I got to get out of here. It was just like, I worked 90 hours a week. It was insane. The best experience of my entire life. But then I came back and helped open all the Fireside Pies. I think there were 4 or 5 at that time, sort of like a kitchen manager, opening all the kitchen recipes, training, all that. And then we opened and I ran Victor Tango's for 5 years.
Yep.
So, and then
Henderson.
the story keeps going.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So I want a couple things. And if you need to take a second to reflect, we can jump to Nik for a minute. From Dean, from Nik, from New York, what are principles you're learning? Again, so much of the audience are business owners. Yeah. So go.
Yeah. I mean, from Dean, from everyone, but really at an early age, from Dean was super high standards, never say no. And there's no one better than who works the room and makes people feel than Dean Faring. He's the godfather of it. So I kind of learned that. Then I think from, going from the hotel to the independent restaurant world, Nik, I really learned, running features, being creative, running tight food costs, running tight labor costs. Your independent restaurant, every penny matters.
Yeah, that operational side starts.
And that's why I wanted to. The mansion was really my foundation culinarily.
Yep.
And then the independent with Consilient was like sort of my business crash course of like, if we don't make money, the restaurant closes.
Correct.
So like, let's figure that out.
And waste is waste and all those other things.
100%. Yeah. And learning how to do like proper inventory sheets and, counts and all that kind of stuff and food costing items out. And then I'll keep it short, but I worked. So Rosewood Hotels was going to open a hotel in Miami called Aquilina. So after that, I wanted to get out of Dallas.
Yep.
So Dean was going to open a restaurant in Aquilina. I was going to go be the sous chef there. Tornado hits, majorly delayed. Rosewood's like, do you want to go to the Caribbean or do you want to go to New York? I was like, let's go Big Apple. So I went and worked at the Carlisle Hotel in New York, which was a really, really cool experience. Mm-hmm. But I was still craving something more. I ended up getting a job at Il Molino, the original Il Molino. There's only one Il Molino, West 3rd Street, New York, 17 tables, did over $6 million a year.
Best gluten-free bread ever in the whole world.
The what?
Best gluten-free bread in the entire world.
They definitely did not have gluten-free bread when I was there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean,
these people weren't invented yet.
Yeah.
The gluten-free person wasn't invented yet.
Yeah. I mean, Il Molino was one of the, it was still the height of it. It was insane. I met everyone who was
Yeah.
everyone. And that's where I actually came to the front of the house.
Correct.
And there's a point to this whole story. But so now I really knew I wanted to open up my own restaurant one day, and like this was what I was doing. So now 10 years had passed of being a back of the house and chefing and cooking and all that. And so I decided I needed to be a front of the house manager. I needed to learn about all this stuff. So basically got hired at Il Molino as a kitchen manager. And then I had to wear a tuxedo to work. I also worked the front of the house. And the guy who ran that restaurant, his name was Claudio. And he is one of the greatest men of all time. And he is probably the most famous server maitre d' in all of New York. We just went and visited with him. We were just in New York, and we went and saw him. Every time I'm there, I see him.
What part of town does he live in?
He actually lives in Jersey.
He does.
But he's worked at Il Molino over 30 or 35 years or something like that.
Incredible.
And I mean, I won't get into some of the fun stuff at Il Molino. Let's just say there's a back payphone for special people.
Yeah.
So Claudio really taught me everything about hospitality, taking care of guests. So back in that day, there was a small dining room. There were 2 servers. Claudio had the back section. Let's say it was 10 tables or 9 tables or whatever. He was the captain, the front waiter. And then he had a little team working for him. So he was at the table and he was talking to people. I mean, when he was talking to you, there may as well not have been anyone else in the restaurant.
You were the most important person.
Most important person. And it was all about hospitality. It was all about perfect service. It was all about cleanliness, high standards, like just giving people what they want. So I think like, Dean, Nick, Tristan, Claudio, like all these people sort of along the way I've taken something sort of from all of them. And there are a lot of other people along the way, but that's kind of who kind of made me who I am. I think.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. You pick us up through some of those next years.
Yeah,
where Greg's doing that.
So as Greg mentioned, I came back to Cuba Libre as a bartender. I filled that role for about a year, I think. And for some reason, I can't remember now, but there was a manager at Fireside that had to leave like pretty quickly. And my boss at the time was like, "Hey, you want to try this?" I'm like, "All right, sure. Why not? That's what I'm supposed to do, right?" And I got hired as a manager for Fireside. And Fireside was a very...
Which location?
this was the Plano location, so like at Legacy, where our field parties were. Right? So, so I did that for a little bit, and that's where I like really met, using mentors as kind of like this guiding line here. Taryn Anderson was I think she was the director of ops was her title for all the Firesides at the time. And she is just, to this day, truly, whenever I come up with a tough situation, I'm like, what would Taryn do? Like that's
and also just Taryn, when I was a young sous chef at Cuba Libre, Taryn was a cocktail server.
No way.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And Taryn, she is still the hardest working person I've ever met, like super talented. I think she was like literally 9 months pregnant, running up and down the stairs at Cuba Libre. Like nobody can work harder, faster, stronger. Like she's the best. And she really taught me, and I was a young manager. Like I didn't know what I was doing. It was me. My best friend at the time was like the kitchen manager. We had another guy in the front of the house, and we did everything. I had to make the pizza sauce. We rolled dough. Then we also like came up with cocktails. It was, we had the most sales in the company for all the Firesides, maybe because of the location, maybe because of us. I don't know. But it was just a great intro to management because it was a simple business, right? It was pizza, salads, and a couple hot apps. Bar was pretty straightforward. We had some batch cocktails, small staff, very close, like tight-knit, like family-like staff. And Taryn really taught me about, I'll call it guest relations and staff relations, like how to work from the front door, the importance of flow and knowing people's names and building the business one guest at a time. But also the importance of behind the scenes, having a pre-shift, talking about products, talking about food, just the importance of like how you develop the service to create the hospitality, to take care of the guests, to build it all like one plate at a time. And she was just really, she's just really smart. She's really organized. She was really structured. The other thing I really learned from her, which was really, I didn't understand it at the time, but I look back and realized that it was impactful to me, is the importance of like standards, communicating expectations, and holding people accountable. Because when you're a young manager, all the people are like your age. You're like, you want to be buddy and go grab a drink with them after work, which doesn't work, And I didn't know that at the time. And, I think I was fortunate because of like, I was a very hard worker and good at doing the job. And so like I gained respect from the team I was leading because like I was, in it. Like I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't do myself. And so I was successful in that regard, but I wasn't yet understanding how to lead and how to like really create a true great culture. So anyways, I moved on from there. I was asked to go help Greg open Victor Tango's. Like, it was a really innovative bar that really brought craft cocktails back to Dallas. It was it was East Coast in New York at the Rainbow Room, and then West Coast came, and then it kind of like came to the center. And Dallas, Victor Tango's was truly the first place that used jiggers and fresh juice. Before that, it was like, sweet and sour mix. And again, I come from the bar world, so or bar direction anyways. So that was like mind blowing. And I mean, now you can't find a restaurant or a bar that doesn't do that.
Right.
It really started with Victor Tango. So I opened that up with Greg. I was literally there for the opening training and all that. And then kind of realized that if we had a family wedding, like one of us couldn't go. So it like didn't make sense for us to stay together. Plus, if I wanted to get a promotion, he had to be gone, which didn't make a ton of sense. So I actually went across this the street, on Henderson to the Porch, which was a really, really good experience for me because it was like the first true big restaurant, right? It wasn't just a pizza oven and salads. This was grill, fryer, saute,
everything.
a huge staff, a giant bar. And I got to work with a guy named Tom Johnson who, I consider a mentor of mine too, who really taught me about the back of the house. And I don't mean kitchen. I mean like P&Ls, financing, inventory, all that stuff. I think you really need two sides of the same coin, right? Somebody that's willing to teach you and somebody that's hungry to learn. And like we were a good match for that. And as I shared, like I was always pretty good at numbers, and it just like really just blew my mind. He taught me like, okay, here's this financial statement, which is your report card, how you did. You can talk about guest experience and all that stuff all you want, but if you want to be a sustainable business, this has to have something at the bottom.
Right.
And he was like, okay, this number's off. Great. Why? Ask yourself, look around, like wine cost is too high. What do we do? Okay. Let's go get a measuring stick and put a line on it. Make sure everybody pours a glass exactly right instead of overpouring. All of a sudden, the numbers are good. Okay, get back up. What other number's off? Okay, this one. Let's go attack that. And just a really analytical way of operating using numbers. And I just saw the effects of it, and it was really like mind blowing, really to me. And because I was always just bus table, seat guests, go as fast as you can, run food. I wasn't like operating a business, if that makes sense. So that was really impactful. And then Tristan opened a restaurant in Los Angeles called Westside Tavern, and Tom was asked to go run that. He got there, and a week later called me. He was like, "Hey, I need you to come." And so I'm like young, 26 at the time. Like, you're going to pay for me to move out in LA? Like, great, let's do this.
Let's go.
So same as Greg, like sign me up, buddy.
Let's go.
Venice Beach, let's go.
Yeah, so I went out there for about 4 years and worked with Tom. And this was a hugely successful restaurant. Probably double the size of the Porch. It did like 8 million, 9 million a year, something like that. Private dining rooms, huge kitchen, big time chef. And it was just an incredible life experience also, right? When I wasn't at work.
Wait, I got it. So this is in Mark Cuban and Wagner's, what was it called?
The Landmark Theater.
Landmark Theaters. So on Westwood and Pico in LA. So like literally a movie would get out, and it was like, boom, 300 people through the door.
It was insane. It was this really unique symbiotic relationship. There was the Landmark Theater, was an independent theater, right?
Yep.
So it brings a certain affluent guest that's a little bit more refined, but also wants what they want.
Yep.
And then we had, I can't remember the name of the bookstore, Barnes & Noble, which also brought a similar kind of demographic, and then Westside Tavern. And I remember holiday seasons. He talks about movies coming out. I mean, holiday season, I remember like literally before going into work at the back door, it's like, you're good enough. You're smart. You could do like we literally had to, I mean, it was just an onslaught. You would open the door and there'd be like, I mean, no joke, 150, 200 people all, I want food right now. Let's go. And the staff is just getting bullied and berated. And you got to like, that's where like I kind of learned the importance of like culture, where it's like, look, it's not necessarily us against them, right? It's obviously both together, but having the understanding that you have to inspire and pump up, and you can't just like, bullshit them with like pom-poms. You have to legitimately find ways to keep them engaged, keep them excited, keep them going. And that was new to me. And again, you can guys tell I'm a pretty high energy, intense guy. So like that side of it was pretty easy, but finding almost, I'll call it psychological ways of like making them understand, having perspective, having empathy, just understanding the bigger picture.
Coaching the team.
Yeah. And developing them too, making them better. And what also came about during that time for me is, most people in the restaurant industry will share that like the reason they're in it because they either love food and beverage or they love people. And I, definitely both of those, but not on the same level that Greg is. For me, what I found was I was like a figure outer of things, like I call it like restaurant engineering, like take like a really complicated system and make it more streamlined, Like I used to say, like I'll never promise to make your job easier because that doesn't necessarily correlate to a better guest experience, but making you more efficient does both,
Yeah.
And like I really just like learned little things like putting the point of sale thing where they bring in the orders in alphabetical order, like different colors. So it was easier to find buttons, little things like that. And, but times that by 1,000 little things in a restaurant. And that's really like that. And then there was a moment. So I was promoted to become a general manager when Tom was asked to come back to Dallas to work at the home office, my first like big time role. And I had like a major epiphany then. It was like, I can't remember, 2 weeks maybe after I was the GM. And it was a long Saturday, finished doing notes, like picked up my bag. I was walking out of the office and I like remember looking right. I remember to this day, Riley, he was like one of our like longer tenured servers. And he was about to take a hot tea out, but like not quite right. There's a standard, the handles on the right, the spoon at the top, the lemon on the left, the 2 sugar cubes. And it was like not quite right. And, 2 weeks prior to that, before I was a GM, I was like, oh, whatever, it's a little thing. Or man, I don't want to deal with that now. Or I'll talk to him tomorrow. Or maybe it was just a one-off. Like, I like realized that like the buck stopped with me. And like, if I didn't do it and God forbid somebody saw me see it and not do it, like credibility's gone. And like that moment, I think in life and in your career, you don't like mature like linearly. You have like these moments,
Yep.
And that was it for me. And like, as soon as I realized that like it's up to me, the buck stops with me, the standards, the expectations, the community, the communication, the training, like it was just rocket fuel from there. Like I just figured it out. And I came home after a couple of years there and was like a director of operations for the Headington group. Well, it was Consilient that became the Headington group. And I was basically in charge of all the restaurants and openings that weren't in the Jewel Hotel. And that was just a good experience on, multitasking and kind of learning how to do a bunch of stuff, keeping a lot of balls in the air basically. And it was good, not great. I kind of didn't know what I was doing in that role. I was just a great general manager trying to figure out how to be a bigger person.
Yep.
And stayed with them for a while. And then their culture kind of started to go south from my perspective. I decided it was time for me to move on. And the next step that I got was Christine McGran, another lady that came from the Consilient group. She offered me a job in hotels at the Adolphus Hotel, and I'd never done hotels. And that was an awesome experience. I'd never done banquets and catering. She just knew hard worker, smart, good with people, like can figure things out kind of. And that's what the hotel needed. I'm telling you, I spent my first year there. I didn't do any of my job ever. It was just fixed relationships. There were,
Interesting.
It's hard. Hotels are hard.
Yeah.
It's lots of people.
So many moving parts.
Oh, yeah.
What was really helpful for me is previous to that, my job was always talking with, restaurant managers and chefs, servers, bartenders. Now I had to learn how to get things done with salespeople and engineers and revenue managers. It was just a whole different group of people and really taught me. The goal is to get the maximum out of people and like learning what their values are and what's important to them and how to, I don't want to say manipulate it, but like use that in order to get like a final result was really, really beneficial. And again, another example of culture being super important. You're trying to manage, I think I had 250 people in the food and beverage department, not including the temporary workers. It was a lot, and, systems, protocols, like not losing sight of the people because you're worrying about like all the protocols and systems. And it really taught me about the finance stuff because now it was like,
These are big numbers.
Big time. And like, and you got to hit numbers and you got to do a budget presentation and you got to, if you miss numbers, okay, who you letting go? Cause you're not allowed to lose numbers, like it was it was really challenging, but also like really beneficial. You know, we said at the very beginning, Greg founded the company and I partnered later. It was because I couldn't have been a good partner to him. I didn't know enough. I needed to go to school to really understand how to take one or two businesses and make it hopefully 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You know, we'll see what the future holds, but we couldn't. There's no chance I could have been a help to him, or we could grow without getting that experience. It was really, really impactful and a big part of our success now, quite frankly.
Okay, I just want to like stop right here for a second. So you started really in the hotel business, learned the hotel side. You kind of ended up in the hotel side of the industry, and really incredible how your experiences over, you know, a 15-year period of time, if I've got the timeline right, just, you know, you're each growing in your individual experiences, both growing a passion for the business. I'm sure you're talking about it.
We're constantly. So actually, it's been almost 23 years actually.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time, and we're talking the whole entire time, and we're loving it. We've all of a sudden like found this passion for food and restaurants. Our parents took us to San Francisco one time, and we just drove around checking out restaurants, eating. I mean, this is like when we were like very, very early. Like I was a cook at the mansion still probably. So yeah, I mean, it was just.
And I love how like neither one of you sort of started. I mean, you ended up at the Two Senoritas or whatever the place was in Sarasota, you know, right after high school, and you know, you're bartending and in Austin, and just like it just sort of happened.
Yeah, well,
there's no real plan. Which I think is awesome. Like it's an awesome message for a lot of people to know that you don't have to necessarily have a plan.
And I think part of our success this far also has been, you know, we're restaurant guys in the restaurant business. There are a lot of businessmen or women in the restaurant business, like who, like, not that we've done everything, but I mean, we've washed dishes, we've been hostesses, we've been servers, bartenders, cooks. Like there are people that own restaurants that have never worked in a restaurant. So I think that's also, you know, part of what has gotten us where we were. And I think, you know, not to speak for Nik, but you know, they're part of. You know, I kind of felt like a failure at points in my life.
Sure.
I didn't take the traditional, like, you go to college and then you graduate from college and then you go work, you know, in the real estate company or whatever. So like, I think both of us we worked harder than everyone else. And that's
like a chip on our shoulder.
We had a chip on our shoulder coming up. And that's
a lot
really,
of momentum, a lot of power in that.
Yeah.
All right. So how do we get to Katz Brothers? When does...
Yeah. So
go.
Yeah. So really, you know, so much stuff has happened, you know, through this time, and what we've talked about today is really just the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, so many people, so many experiences, traveling, you know, whatever it is. So when this is all happening, and I mentioned the time was ready, like through my experiences, I knew that I could cook awesome food. I knew that we could hire good people, and I knew that I could run, you know, an incredible, warm and buzzy sort of 4 walls.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
That's kind of all I knew at that point. And so I set out to do it. And from the beginning, Nik was along helping me in the shadows, helping me with like the budgets and the pro formas. And I mean, I had to go raise money for the first time. So, you know, he's been a part of it from the very, very beginning. And we've been talking about it. And even through Beverly's, the first couple years when he wasn't even a part of it, there were constant phone calls for hours and hours. What do you think about this? You know, what about this? What about that? Reviewing P&Ls, looking at product mixes, things like that. So he's been a part of it the whole time.
So Beverly opened when?
6 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do you feel like, and I think Scott alluded to this, but is there kind of a moment where you all decided we want to be in business for ourselves?
We always, when I set out before Beverly's, as this plan was starting to happen, even before that, I think we knew we wanted to have a family business and we wanted to do this together.
Yep.
We just didn't know how we were going to get there
Yep.
and what the timing would look like. So once Beverly's, I think that's kind of on the timeline. That's sort of like the first, line. It's like Beverly's opens. And at that time, we're having a lot more serious conversations. And like Nik said, man, you're not quite ready. We also can't afford it. So like, we got to start planning.
And
how
you
this
need
happens.
Beverly's to be successful.
It's got to be successful.
It's got to be
Yeah.
successful.
Yeah.
Because you had to raise money
I
to
had
open.
Yeah.
Okay. So walk us through then.
And by the way, I know one of your original investors, and he said, and I quote, one of the best investments I've ever made.
Thank you. We worked hard to take care of our people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Joe, right?
Yeah. Well, we may not want to say that on.
Yeah.
We may not, but and he sat right here in this chair.
Yeah.
And
we,
it's very cool.
That's awesome. And I love Joe. And it, really our initial group of investors and like for Greenpoint, which was a pretty large group for us. It's really friends and partners who feel like they are a part of all of this as well. And that's part of what we want to continue to do. Do we hope one day that we can, have a nice, injection of large capital? Absolutely.
Yep.
But like, it's really important. We want to do this for 20 or 30 more years, maybe not work this hard, but, we want to continue to do this with our friends and, the people who've been with us since day one. And we want to make a difference in the city,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, whether it's Joe, whether it's, this person or that person, they're in this business, that business, and that business. And all of a sudden we're kind of like linking it together. And you might walk into one of our dining rooms or one of our restaurants and see like all these sort of different people coming together. It's really, really special thing.
Mm-hmm.
Really special.
As entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
let's talk about that for a second. How do you all think about equity? How do you all think about partnerships? How do you all roadmap out the next 3 to 5 years? How are y'all processing all that?
I'll let Nik talk a little bit about it, but the answer is we're really learning about it.
Okay.
Like and I think this happens to a lot of people, especially like guys who came up sort of like me during that period of time. It was like, I want to open up my one restaurant and I'm going to be there all the time and it's going to be the best restaurant you ever had. And that's all I care about until that restaurant available across the street opens up. And then you're like, well, shit, I got to do that. And now we're opening number 4. So, I think the short answer is we are now talking a lot about what is the roadmap? Where do we want to be? We're getting, offers thrown in, every single day, with people willing to build things for us, pay us this, do that, not to get off subject, but it's like all this real estate development. Well, what helps create it, right? Restaurants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what starts the community. Like you have land, you build buildings, you put a restaurant,
Gotta
everyone
drive
starts
traffic,
to come.
gotta build community.
Exactly. So I don't know what you want to add to
Yeah,
that.
just one thing that Greg's done recently, through his connections in the city, is actually reached out to a few very successful people and groups and have like organized little lunches and sit downs. And I just picked their brain about everything I could possibly think of from a growth and financial strategic planning, layers of leaders and directors. Because we're kind of close to our max. If I'm like the front of the house director of operations, he's the culinary director, and we both do both. But like we can't do that by ourselves if we get to 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. So what do we do first? Is it HR? Is it a CFO? Is it a director of ops? Is it
So the team is just the two of you all right
two of
now?
us, yeah.
There's no other HQ.
I'm director
That's
of HR, finance, operations, pick a winner, whatever it is. We just have we have lots of hats.
This is where I think as we get in, obviously so many of our listeners are business owners, entrepreneurs. How is that? Yeah, it's the priority list of who hire first, what hire first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walk us through some of those conversations.
Well, I think even just kind of backing up for a second, the other, like Nik and I, I'm sure you guys can tell, are very different, right? And that's part of the recipe, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's like, creative, inspiring, vision kinds of things. Like Nik and I, when when I've been stressed out about all these opportunities, Nik simply said it. And that's how like we can just kind of bring it down. It's like, listen, let's go open as many restaurants as you want to do. I can operate them. Mm-hmm. Not meaning let's go open a ton of restaurants, but like whatever our bandwidth is, like as long as you can create and, you know, have the vision for it, I can operate. And that's why we work so well together. Mm-hmm. I mean, we both do everything, but like we're very, very different and we came up different ways and our strengths are extremely different. Mm-hmm. So this partnership really works.
Not a joke. I tell people like to explain it very quickly. Like Greg is color, I'm black and white. He is vision, culinary, creative, guest relations, you know, business development. I'm structure, organization, training, systems, you know, like I went and found benefits for the company, you know, like things like that, you know, behind the scenes.
Nik walks by a table. He goes, that's not where the knife and fork are supposed to go. I walk past the table and go, how's the food?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, it's a great dynamic. And I'm sure there are times when you guys are in conflict with each other. You know, we my co-founder here at True North, Mark Gelbach, we're very similar to you guys in the sense that, you know, Mark's a little more data driven with his decision making. I'm a little bit more big picture. And we have this thing, which is if he's uncomfortable, we're probably going a little bit too fast. If I'm uncomfortable, we're going too slow. Right. And so if we're both a little uncomfortable, we're probably going at the right speed, a little fast for him, a little slow for me. Like it, you know, that's kind of the right pacing.
It's a great analogy.
And the other thing I would say is, you know, have you guys heard of EOS?
Yeah.
Okay, we talk a lot about EOS on this podcast, but you know, you guys, the way your personalities line up, the perfect definition of the visionary and the integrator. Yeah. And
we're gonna do it.
Yeah, you should.
I've been trying to sell them on it. I used at the Adolphus.
How many employees do you guys have?
After we open this 4th location, we'll have almost 200 employees.
Yeah, it will help you so much in terms of how you think about scaling forward.
Yeah.
The last thing I would offer is just as you start to think about, you know, is it HR? Is it, you listed several positions that you're taking right now? What's the easiest one to offload? Like,
that's the answer.
That's the answer, right? Because the hardest one will be, you know, the most difficult one, the most complex one, the one that you think you're the only one that can do today. Save that one for last. Right. But the one that's kind of like you're least interested in, you have the least passion for, maybe is the easiest.
That's easy.
Yeah.
HR.
Yeah. So
all right, done.
So done, right? Like go solve that problem, because then it frees you, gives you capacity to go take on the next thing. And then whatever the next one is, go solve that one. And just solve them one at a time, and eventually you'll have your team built and put together, and then that frees you guys up to go do what you're great at, which ultimately will be to scale, you know, what you're doing.
There's clearly going to be more conversations between the four of us, and I can't wait. So here's how I want you all to kind of close our time today. Hospitality is near and dear to both of y'all's hearts. Someone listening owns a tech business. They own a manufacturing business. How would you coach a room full? You're going to go speak at YPO. You got an organization y'all know well. You're going to speak to them about hospitality. What are principles that you think are transferable that every business owner should be thinking through as it relates to their clients or customers in hospitality?
Yeah, I mean, listen, first of all, you got to financially run a great business. Without that, conversation ends. And then, I mean, it's culture. I mean, that's it. It's the culture within your company. It's the way you treat your people. It's the way you treat your guests or your clients, whatever business you're in. But I think it's, you know, it's financial, knowing your product, and the culture. And I mean, culture has sort of been not beaten into us, but it's been the biggest learning and most important thing from, you know, all kinds of different businesses and, you know, leaders along the way.
And I'll answer similar but different. You know, I think that hospitality is huge, but hospitality without service is missing the other side of it. You know, I think that service, again, using a similar metaphor, service is black and white and hospitality is color. Service is getting the person the thing they want in an efficient, timely, and correct way. Hospitality is how you make them feel while doing that. You know, And if you understand the emotional side of it and the actual technical skill of it, and you can combine them, now you can only combine them with incredible communication, incredible standards, great accountability and expectations. And like, if those are like the three principles, I think it's the management, the service, and the hospitality. Like those, you got to perfect all three though. If any one of them is too big or too small than the other, the pyramid crumbles basically.
And I think that's like, kind of what we've been talking about. It's like the way Nik thinks. And then it's like with the culture piece of it, it's for any business. It's like, that's how you got to grow. Right. It's like, it all starts within and it's top down. Right.
100%. What's one thing that you all do to have a healthy culture?
I think there's a lot of things, but I mean, I think day to day, still to this day, working in our restaurants. I mean, the obvious one is like, one-on-ones and still doing communication with servers or bartenders or cooks. And like, so that's something you have to do. But I think one thing that also makes us different from some other groups is that Nik and I are running the floor, running the kitchen. I'm doing line checks, in every restaurant every day. We can't do that forever, but like that's something that has gotten us here today. So
it's awesome.
I'll say that I think the pragmatic thing you could, I don't say implement, but like having the understanding that a hard truth is better than an easy lie. Like no matter what happens, any action either requires an attaboy, good job, or hey, let me show you how to fix it. Using that hot tea example, like you can't see something not right and not address it.
Yeah.
And if everybody knows that's the way, you got a shot.
Yeah.
I love that transparency. Nik, Greg, thank you guys very much. Go see one of the restaurants, go taste their food, enjoy their hospitality. Thank you all.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.